Now that Felix the Shark is finally released, I decided it was time to get back to my Fazbear Frights summary and lore videos. I already did one of these for the story Felix the Shark itself, so go check it out if you haven't already. But in today's video, we're going to be reading the second story in Felix the Shark, The Scoop. This story is one of the weirdest Fazbear Frights stories, and I don't want to spoil too much before getting into the summary, but it's basically if us FNAF fans were canon to the FNAF universe. Funny enough, this story is also written by Scott Cawthon himself. As I said in the Felix the Shark video, I didn't actually buy the book, I'm reading it off of Ozone's audiobook, so check those out if you want to. But anyway, let's get started talking about The Scoop. The main character of this story is Mandy, who's literally a fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's game series. This is kind of funny, and it's basically saying that the Scoop takes place in a FNAF universe where FNAF fans are canon to the universe. The story starts with Mandy at school writing a FNAF fanfiction. She pauses and looks up at her teacher, Mr. Peterson, and if you watched my Felix the Shark video, you probably remember me mentioning how there's a lot of things in the story that connect to Hello Neighbor, though it's almost definitely a coincidence. But in the story, the owner of Freddy's was named Aaron, which is the name of the son of the neighbor in Hello Neighbor. And the main antagonist is an animatronic shark, which the neighbor has in Act 2 of Hello Neighbor, as well as some of the alphas. Mr. Peterson, though, is the name of the neighbor himself. So it seems like not only did the Felix the Shark story have unintentional Hello Neighbor references, but the Felix the Shark book overall does. Anyway, Mandy gets a text from someone named Total Misfit saying, "OMG, did you read Freak Story's latest fic?" Mandy responds saying that it's good, and her friend says hers was better though. Mandy says thanks, but the teacher came and asked what she was doing. She tried to cover the fanfiction she was writing, but the teacher looked at her story and read it out loud. Mandy was uncomfortable when the students laughed about it, and she said it was just a creative writing prompt. Mr. Peterson told her to do her real work, and people laughed some more. Some bitches named Melissa and Lily behind Mandy made fun of her, saying her fanfiction was so original, just like her pink hair, which is obviously sarcasm. Mandy also had heterochromia, and she has one brown eye and one green eye, and Melissa and Lily made fun of that, calling Mandy a freak show. They asked why Mandy was such a freak, and she replied by saying that she was lucky, but Melissa responded saying that she was cursed. Mandy thought that was true, because she had to deal with these bitches for the past 3 years. Mandy went to an all-girls school. Melissa was rich and had red hair and bangs and blue eyes, and a lot of other bitches followed her because of that. Mandy was really different to everyone else, which she thought was why she was bullied by Melissa and the bitches for the past 3 years. Mandy found a piece of paper on her locker that said Macehead on it, and after that, she skateboarded her way back home. For the rest of the day, Mandy had to finish her homework, finish her fanfic story, and write an entry on her blog called the M&M Scoop, which is where the title of the story comes from. She got home and greeted her mom, who questioned her pink hair, and her mom kinda didn't approve of Mandy in some aspects, but she still obviously cared about her. She loved her, it's her daughter, but she was kind of confused as to why Mandy always dyed her hair all the time. Mandy asked about her mom's work, and her mom mentions that she's going to Utah next week. Utah is of course where the FNAF games and novel trilogy primarily take place, so it's interesting to note here. Later, in her room, Mandy had licorice in her mouth, her stuffed blue elephant named Mr. Happy under her arm, and she was playing FNAF 3 on her phone. Mandy liked playing video games so that she could just get away from school drama. She had gotten into FNAF in the summer once, and it's talked about that the FNAF community is full of die-hard gamers who love the series for its jump scares, had a habit of playing the games, wrote fanfics, and theorized about the lore. I find this funny because Scott himself wrote this story, and here, he's just ranting about the community his game created. We're all monsters that he unwittingly created. Mandy recently learned of an online decompiler that could break the source code of games, and she was waiting for hers to do that for FNAF 3 because she had seen some video game theorists who had found lore clues in the code of other FNAF games. I wonder who that's referencing. Mandy got a notification on her laptop from a FNAF forum on Gamers Unite. It was a post about a 5-year-old boy who went missing 17 years ago. Mandy knew missing kids were common in FNAF, but she clicked on it because she was bored. Apparently there were details that he was kidnapped by a man in purple. Mandy made the connection from a man in purple to a purple man to William Afton. It's funny, but it's also kind of weird because Scott himself confirmed William isn't actually purple, and that's actually explained later on in the story. I'm spoiling a little bit of what happens later on in the story, but basically, it was a newspaper article that accidentally printed the sketch of the man in purple, which is where the man in purple comes from. Mandy's decompiler was done, and when she opened it, there were a bunch of images, textures, and audio files from the game. She found it cool and grabbed a framed photo of her brother and said, "Look at this, Bobby, pretty cool, huh?" She then looked through the files and found an image called lookshauntednow.jpg. She didn't know what it was, so she opened it, and in it was a black and white image of an old metal building with a door with chipped paint, a crack in the front window, a street name called Willow Something Road. She was instantly really excited that she'd found something she hadn't seen anyone talk about before, so she downloaded the image and posted it on a FNAF forum. The caption read, "You guys will never guess what I found. Something new in the files of FNAF 3. Have you seen this before? What do you think this photo means? How do you think it's related to the game's story? Give me all your ideas. Help!" Mandy was really surprised she found something new in the files. She picked up the picture of her brother and asked him if he thought it could be lore or maybe a teaser for an upcoming FNAF project. About an hour later, she wrote an entry in her blog and realized she should do her homework as it was getting late. Then she noticed something red flash in her peripherals. She didn't notice anything in her room being different than it usually was, so she thought she was just tired and spooked from thinking about FNAF all day. Then she started working on her homework, but she got tired and went to bed. But before she went to sleep, she said, "Until tomorrow, FNAF world." At first I thought she just meant the FNAF universe, but the word world has a capitalized W, so I wonder if she was talking about FNAF World the game, or if maybe Scott put this here to maybe tell us that this story is in a universe that FNAF World was a part of. FNAF World is a game that knows it's a game, and it breaks the fourth wall a lot, and Scott Cawthon himself, as well as the FNAF game, specifically the FNAF 4 Halloween DLC and FNAF World game itself, are mentioned within it. Scott himself is the main antagonist of FNAF World, and because of that, and the fact that the FNAF games exist in the FNAF World universe, I think it's clear that FNAF World isn't canon, or at least the lore is canon, which Scott explicitly confirmed in the Dawko interview, but the gameplay isn't canon. I think FNAF World could be a game within a universe where we are canon, and that actually makes a lot of sense now thinking about it. And maybe that universe is the universe of the Scoop, and maybe even in the flesh. Anyway, back to the story. In her blog entry, Mandy says that she's going to do research to find the real location and ask around for answers. The next morning, Mandy asked her dad what he thought a photo in the files of a game that wasn't in the game itself might mean, and he said it was possible it was just something they left in there and wasn't important. He said maybe it could have just been a building that inspired elements of the game. Something I feel like I should mention is that FNAF fans nowadays dig really deep into the source code pretty much immediately whenever a game is released. Back in the day though, we didn't really know yet that we should do that. So given the fact that this detail in the FNAF 3 files was only found at that point, it seemed like this story takes place when FNAF 3 had only recently been released. FNAF 3 was released on March 2nd in 2015, which is interestingly also the year Into the Pit has been theorized to take place. Now, you may think there's a problem with this because Mandy was playing a FNAF 3 on her phone, but the FNAF 3 mobile ports were released on March 6th and 12th, so that's not a problem. Before school ended, Mandy rushed to her locker, but when she opened it, green slime splattered out all over her. She heard the bitch girls laughing at her. Mandy was understandably pissed off, but she just wanted to go home so she could check how her post on the forum was doing. She got herself cleaned up and started getting her stuff from her locker, but she realized that her board was gone. She didn't want to satisfy Melissa and make a big deal out of it, so she just grabbed her stuff and left, but on her way out, she reported her missing board to the office. The green slime stained her pink hair, so she decided to dye her hair purple instead, which she does a little bit later. She told the picture of her brother how bad of a day it was, and she wished he was there for her to talk to for real. Mandy checked her forum post and saw that it had 43 downvotes. The comments had mostly been negative, and most people were saying they couldn't find it and that they didn't think it was real. Mandy was confused. She didn't understand why no one else could find it. Mandy then got a call from her friend Lindy, who was the total misfit from before. They were only online friends, but they often messaged each other and video chatted with each other. On the call, Mandy tried to figure out why she could find it, but no one else could. Lindy thought it could have been a glitch or everyone else had just missed it, and Mandy decided to decompile the game again to see if anything else popped up, or to see if the photo still appeared. Then they played their own 20 questions, which was basically their way of getting to know each other. Then they talked about siblings, and Mandy mentioned that her brother Bobby died when he was a baby, which is why she talks to a photo of him. The photo was of his 3-week-old self wearing baby blue pajamas. After getting off the call, Mandy stared into space, wondering what it would have been like if Bobby had survived and grown up. But while she was thinking about him, she spotted a small blue shoe at the top of the staircase. She got up to see what it was, but when she did, it shifted out of her view. Mandy grabbed a baseball bat to face whatever was upstairs, but nothing was there. Then she simply said that she had been playing too much FNAF. The next day, she dyed her hair purple and looked through the re-decompiled FNAF 3 file so she could screenshot the photo and prove it was real, but this time she couldn't find it. She now thought no one else would believe her because the proof no longer existed. She got back onto the forum and edited her post, saying she didn't know what happened and that the photo really was in the files, but it wasn't anymore. She then used a reverse image search that Lindy had sent her and put the image into it. It interestingly came back with a bunch of links. All of a sudden, Mandy felt really cold, so she turned around to get a sweater. When she turned around, she saw a small child peering into her room. The boy looked to be about 5 or 6, and he wore a bright red shirt. Only one of his eyes was looking at her. When she blinked, he was just gone. She looked around the hallway, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. In the middle of the night, she woke up on her bedroom floor in pajamas, but then she realized she wasn't actually in her own bedroom or even her own house. Mandy walked around the space using the walls to guide her. A yellow light flicked on, and she saw a box of animatronic heads and body parts on a black and white checkered floor. She instantly recognizes this as the Fazbear's Fright location from FNAF 3. She thought she had to be dreaming. She then saw that the boy that was in her room earlier had appeared in front of her. He was wearing a red shirt, jeans, and blue sneakers. His brown hair was also spiky and messy. She greeted him and asked who he was and if he knew how to get out. She stepped towards him, but he quickly turned around and ran away. Mandy chased after him through the halls of Fazbear's Fright. She yelled out that there were animatronics here that would want to hurt him. She chased him into a storage room, but when she went in, he wasn't there. There were shelves on the wall with animatronic parts. There was a Freddy head and a box of eyes, arms, and legs. Mandy found the boy behind a big box. She told him not to be scared and that she wasn't going to hurt him, and he lifted his head, and in the lighting his eyes looked pitch black. She told him that she could help him. She moved closer to him when she heard a growling throughout the room. Looking around the room, there was nothing, but when she looked back at the boy, his mouth was open with huge and sharp teeth, and he jumped at her. She screamed, and then she woke up in bed. She was thankful that it was just a bad dream. She tried to go back to sleep, but her eyes were on her locked bedroom door. That night, she couldn't get to sleep at all. At school, she felt like a zombie. She got a message from a number she didn't recognize, and she messaged Lindy about the ghost kid and her nightmare. Then she opened up her phone and googled, "Why do ghosts haunt?" There were results that we are told, and all 3 of them are something that we have actually seen throughout the FNAF series. Unfinished business is the reason behind the animatronics attacking us through all the games, the reason for the FNAF 4 nightmares as well, and also Ultimate Custom Night. Having a message to tell you is possibly a reason behind the Fredbear plush in FNAF 4, and not knowing they are dead is something we see in Coming Home with Susie. None of these made sense in Mandy's case though. In class, the bitches bothered Mandy again, but she didn't say anything, which made them make fun of her even more. She wanted to stand up for herself, but she didn't have the willpower to do so. But she made it through the period, and when she got home, she got to researching the building once again. She found an image of a similar looking building, but in color, in a town called Peace Valley. She did some digging into Peace Valley and found that it was located in Utah, interestingly where the FNAF games novel trilogy takes place, as I said earlier. The address of the building was in Willow Field Road. Before, she couldn't read the second word, but it had been Willow something road, but now it was revealed to be Willow Field Road. Mandy was really excited that she had found the building, and she sent Lindy a message telling her she had found it. Then she searched up the actual address, and it came up as a movie theater called Old Cinemas. What the hell kind of name is that for a movie theater? And it played films with no sound. And Mandy thought it would be cool to go to that building and watch one herself. Then Lindy called her, and Mandy told her the building was in Utah, but then Lindy reminded her that she lived in Utah. So then she wrote on her M&M Scoop blog about all the facts about the photo. Funny enough, at the end of the post, Mandy said, and I quote, "I can't share all my secret facts yet until I solve this game theory." Scott, you are an absolute legend for writing this. Later on, Mandy's mom appeared in her doorway back from her work trip, and she questioned the purple hair. She said it made her think of eggplants, which is quite disturbing. Anyway, Mandy's mom was going on another work trip, this one to Cedar City. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I am, but if not, my bad. But then Mandy realized Cedar City is actually where Lindy lives, so she thought maybe she could go with her mom on the work trip and meet up with Lindy in real life and go visit the Looks Haunted Now building together. The only problem now was convincing her mom to let her go with her. So while her mom was making dinner, Mandy began asking her. Her mom didn't let her finish, and she didn't think she would be able to go where she needed her to, and then Mandy asked her if she herself could actually go with her. Her mom questioned it, but eventually she said yes. Immediately, Mandy rushed to her room and called Lindy and told her the news. Then we cut to Mandy on the plane with her mom on their way to Utah. Mandy had an aisle seat so she could see everything in the aisle, including uncomfortably familiar small blue sneakers kicking into the aisle. She thought it must be a coincidence. Then she heard someone call out, "Little boy," which for some reason reminds me of the beginning of Security Breach when Vanessa called out to Gregory like that on the stairs down to the utility tunnels. I don't think it means anything, it just kind of reminded me of that. But when Mandy heard someone say "little boy," she peeked back out into the aisle, and she saw a little boy with a red shirt, jeans, and blue sneakers running in the opposite direction of her. Mandy was freaked out, and for some reason she pinched her mom to see if this was a dream. I don't think that's how it works. A flight attendant chased after the little boy and led him back to his seat, and Mandy tried to get a look at the kid's face to see if it was the ghost. But the flight attendant kept blocking the view. When the kid sat back down, Mandy rushed to where he was sitting, but saw that it was just a kid and it wasn't the ghost. When she sat back down, she saw a flash of red in her peripherals. Then we cut to Mandy in her mom's hotel suite, and it was pretty nice in there, which makes sense because it is a suite. Her mom left to go to a meeting, and Mandy called Lindy to tell her she was now in Utah. Also, can we just take a second to mention that Lindy has 2 brothers and she's the only girl in her family? That's kind of sus. No, but I don't think it really means too much, but yeah. Anyway, Lindy says that she can't meet up today, but she can tomorrow. But then Mandy went to a recorder's office to do more research of old cinemas, and apparently 17 years earlier, it was another business called I can't speak. It was another business called Sideshow's Snack Shack, which was very suspiciously a small family diner. That is extreme level sus. So Mandy now did digging on the Snack Shack and found the grand opening paper. But here's the thing, guys. I mentioned at the beginning of the story that there was a forum about a 5-year-old boy who went missing 17 years ago and was presumably kidnapped by a man in purple. But here, it's mentioned that the Snack Shack had closed 17 years ago. Why? Because a 5-year-old boy was presumed kidnapped at the Snack Shack. There was also a sketch of the man who was spotted near the boy moments before his disappearance. Like I said before, it was printed in purple ink, which led people to believe that it was a purple-colored man with dark eyes. And Mandy recognized him as the Purple Man. Then she remembered why this sounded familiar, the forum post. Honestly, I'm surprised I remembered this before she did, because I remembered it the second I read "young boy kidnapped," before I even finished reading the sentence. When Mandy went back to check the post, she realized that it did mention Utah, and also a family diner. Mandy thought this entire story was perfect for a FNAF fanfiction, but that all that was missing was a possessed animatronic. Oh god. Then we cut to Mandy walking into a dark room with party tables, which she recognized to be Freddy's. She spotted a security camera and realized she was somehow dressed as a security guard. Suddenly, she thought she heard something move, and she looked around and found the ghost boy facing her. This time, she could see that there was a bear logo on his shirt. She didn't know if he was innocent or evil, so she asked how to get out of this dream. The boy opened his mouth full of sharp teeth, and Mandy ran past him and into a room labeled as employees only. She slammed the door behind her, but then saw that the ghost boy was in the room with her. The boy jumped on her and started tearing her apart. At this point, his eyebrows were bigger and more slanted, and his teeth were bigger and sharper. Just then, she woke up screaming with her mom above her, letting her know it was all just a bad dream. After calming Mandy down, her mom left and went back to her room. But standing in the doorway that her mom just walked through was the ghost boy. She blinked and he was gone, nowhere else in the room. Mandy tried to get back to sleep that night, but she couldn't, so she slipped into bed with her mom. The next day, Mandy and Lindy finally met up with each other in the lobby of the hotel, and they were really happy to actually meet each other in person. They talked about fan fictions and stuff, and they went back into Mandy's hotel room. Mandy caught her up on the stuff she had found out about the movie theater and the missing kid. Mandy said that she thought the story of the missing boy might be related to FNAF lore. After that, they went to Peace Valley, where the building was located. Peace Valley was a really small town with only a few hundred people living there. There was literally only a single streetlight in the entire town. So they made it to the building, and nervously, Mandy and Lindy went inside old cinemas. Also, something else I feel I should mention is that the Family Diner Snack Shack was open for 3 years and had closed 17 years ago. Doing some simple little math, we can calculate that the Snack Shack opened 20 years before this story takes place. If I'm correct about this story taking place in 2015, then the Snack Shack opened in 1995. 1995 is the year of the Silver Eyes and Sergio's Lucky Day, and is also the year that I believe William to have been spring-locked. Anyway, back to the story. When Mindy and Lindy had walked in, they went to the corner and got 2 tickets to see a silent movie for the day. Then Mandy noticed a man working on an electrical box. Then he said that the damn thing hadn't worked very well for 20 years, which was the time ago the Snack Shack opened. That means that this maintenance worker worked here since this building was the Snack Shack. My instant thought was, what if this guy was the purple man? He's not. This guy's name is Jim, and Mandy asked him a few questions about the Snack Shack, like why it had closed down and such. Mandy offered to buy him a soda so they could talk more about it. Apparently Jim was actually there the day the boy went missing, and even helped the police every day. The kid's name was Stevie. Stevie apparently hid from his mom a lot as a joke, but he was always found quickly. But one day they just couldn't find him. Mandy and Lindy left without seeing the movie. Lindy was still finding it a little hard to believe that this was connected to FNAF, but Mandy was certain, because why else would it be in the game files? Then Mandy went back to her hotel and wrote an entry in her blog about how she visited the building from the files of FNAF 3. The next day, she returned to the building again. This time she wanted to know the differences between the Snack Shack and old cinemas. I still find it weird that a family diner here was repurposed into another building. As I've mentioned quite a few times before, I believe that the FNAF 6 building is Fredbear's family diner, but the building repurposed. It would explain why there's so many references to Fredbear's Insecurity Breach, but FNAF 6 is the building underneath. And there are a few other instances of the buildings being repurposed, like in Find Player 2, Felix the Shark, and now the Scoop. Anyways, Jim mentions that the party room of the Snack Shack is now actually the storage room, and Mandy was excited and wanted to see it. Jim said that that was fine as long as he didn't touch anything because he didn't want to get in trouble for it or have Mandy get hurt. A woman walked into the cinema and Jim greeted her. Her name was Mrs. Robbins, and there was something really unhappy about her. Mandy didn't know why until Jim told her that Mrs. Robbins was Stevie's mother. Jim said Mrs. Robbins was a nice lady, but that Mandy had to leave her alone because she'd been through enough. Jim brought Mandy to the storage room. There were a bunch of boxes in there, and Mandy had noticed a yellow sign that said Sideshow's Snack Shack on it, and there was also an image of a plain brown bear on it, which is actually named Sideshow, and that brown bear is likely the inspiration for Freddy in this universe. There was a bunch of discarded stuff in boxes around the room, but in the corner, Mandy noticed a shadow in the shape of a bear. She moved closer to see what it was and saw a mouse go down its face. Mandy thought about what she thought earlier about how all that was missing was a possessed animatronic. Mandy moved closer and there was a horrible smell coming from the bear. The mouth of the bear was sewn shut, which is interesting if you consider that this is a family diner, so this could be a reference to Fredbear in the Bite of 83. One eye was closed and one eye was left open. Mandy was freaked out from seeing the mouse and decided now she should leave. She turned around where she saw the ghost boy appear, but this time his skin was colored gray, and there were dark circles under his even darker eyes. His cheekbones were hollow and you could see the outline of his skull. His hair was thinner and he looked like he was internally rotting. She believed she was imagining things, so she closed her eyes, but when she opened them, he was still there. She ran through the storage room, but the ghost boy was standing wherever she ran. She turned back to look at the bear, and the boy flashed in front of the bear and disappeared. He flashed there again, and a newspaper fell off one of the boxes. The newspaper was about Stevie Robbins, which brought Mandy to the conclusion that he was Stevie Robbins, especially when a picture of Stevie was in the paper. I kind of figured the kid was Stevie. I mean, it was kind of obvious. So Mandy looked back at the bear, and the ghost was gone. She sat in the storage room for a while, questioning why he was haunting her. Jim called from outside saying he had to lock up, so she should hurry up and finish soon. Mandy looked back at the bear and saw Stevie again, who climbed up the bear and twisted its head, and then he disappeared. Mandy thought she understood what he was trying to tell her. She went closer to the bear, hesitantly, and she twisted the bear's head more, which triggered a click. She lifted the bear head and put it down. As soon as the bear was mentioned, I honestly knew straight away what was going to happen. Mandy looked into the bear with her phone flashlight and saw the dead body of Stevie inside. She was terrified at what she saw, and she basically just ran. Suddenly, we cut to Jim outside the building with Mandy, with cop cars all around. Jim told her that she had done it. She had found Stevie after all these years. He seemed upset that he'd checked everywhere but in the bear. Mandy's mom came to the building to get her, and she questioned how she had found Stevie. As they were leaving, Mrs. Robbins approached her to thank her for finally giving her some closure about the loss of her son. When they got back to the hotel, Mandy began to cry. Her mom scheduled an early flight home, but Mandy wouldn't stop crying, even when she got home, despite her never even crying since she was a toddler. When they got home, Mandy was still crying, and she felt like what the bitches at school always said she was, a freak. Her parents tried to calm her down and cheer her up, but they just couldn't. She took the rest of the week off school, and her parents took the week off work. Mandy made one more post on her blog saying that she solved the mystery, but she didn't want to share the details out of respect for Stevie's family. On a video call with Lindy, she mentioned that now that people knew Mandy was her friend, she was getting popular at school. Apparently, Stevie had actually tried to hide from his mom as a joke inside the bear, but had accidentally broken his neck when sealing himself in. Mandy wondered on the call, why did Stevie appear in her dreams about FNAF? She thought maybe it was because she found the photo in the files, but she didn't understand the connection between FNAF and Stevie. But she thought if the creator wanted us to know, that he would have just told everyone. When Mandy finally went back to school, she felt differently about it. Melissa, of course, started being a bitch again, but Mandy stood up for herself, and Melissa and her friends were kind of just shocked about that, and they just walked away. When she was done, people in the halls just applauded her. At the end of the day, Mandy saw that her board was finally back. When she went home after school, she saw Stevie Robbins in her room, but he looked like a normal kid again, not like a dead body like the last time she had seen her. Stevie said thank you to Mandy, and he began to walk away, but then he turned around and told her, "Bobby says hello," and that's where the story ends. Personally, I really like this story. It has a lot of heart in it, and there were some funny moments in it as well. However, I did notice some possible parallels in the story, so let's talk about that now. Stevie represents Charlotte, aka the puppet. Melissa and her merry band of bitches represent Michael and the rest of the FNAF 4 bullies. And Mandy represents the FNAF 4 bite victim himself. We have the main character, Mandy, who lost a sibling in the past, just like the bite victim lost Elizabeth. Mandy is an outsider and is often bullied. We have Melissa and her merry band of bitches who act as the bullies for this story, just like Michael and the rest of the bullies in FNAF 4. And we have Stevie, who is the child who died at a family diner. Horrific things happen to Mandy, which leads to her eventually learning about the death of Stevie. Not only that, but Stevie follows Mandy around everywhere. When she runs away from him, he somehow appears wherever she runs. And this seems to me like a massive parallel to the Fazbear plushie from FNAF 4, possessed by Charlotte and is watching the bite victim at every turn. It is also possible that Stevie is a bite victim parallel though, since he died in a bear animatronic that had its mouth screwed closed, likely to reference the bite of 83. And he also died by accident just like the bite victim. But I feel like the Fazbear plush parallel is really what makes me think that Stevie is Charlotte. But what do you guys think? Do you enjoy the story, and what theories do you have about what the story could be trying to tell us? While I think it definitely has lore, I think since it's written by Scott that it is partially made to make fun of the fandom looking too deep into things, which, who knows, I may have even done in this video. But anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then please do leave a like and subscribe. I mentioned in my last video that one of the stories in this book was 100% in the Fazbear Frights Stitchline universe. Felix the Shark wasn't that one, the Scoop certainly isn't that, so that only leaves one more. So, stay tuned for the next summary video where we cover the final Fazbear Frights story, You're the Band. But I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!